People are misled about hormones. And when I say people, it's mainly women, and they suffer. I know there's a lot of people who are like, clean the mold, get rid of the parasites, fix the gut. But if you don't have your hormones balanced, you just suffer a lot longer and it's harder.
I am super excited to chat with Dr. Sharon Stills. Going to be talking about menopause, hormones.
You can eat your way out of, you can move your body out of, you can sleep your way out of, you can meditate your way out to improve your health. But when it comes to your hormone tank being empty, you can't do it. You have to fill the tank with hormones. I have a lot of clinical experience going on to 25 years. And so I see women who, because there's that myth like, I'm going to have a natural menopause, so I'm not going to take hormones, but I'm going to take vitamin E and I'm going to take flaxseed and I'm going to take maca. Somehow we've decided like herbs are okay, but bioidentical hormones are not, even though that's the root cause and that's what we're missing.
A lot of what you said makes sense. But then there's also, another myth that like taking progesterone is safe, but taking estrogen increases the risk of cancer.
All right, so
welcome, Dr. Sharon.
thank you. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, very excited to again have this conversation and yeah, so how long have you been really focusing on menopause and perimenopause, and what led you down this path? I mean, I guess your own experience, but yeah, I'll let you dive a little bit deeper into your background.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't really my own experience. Surprisingly enough, I went to naturopathic medical school to actually be a pediatrician and and wasn't really interested in women's health and hormones. And this was back in the late 90s, and there wasn't really a lot of education we had on women's health and hormones in naturopathic medical school, which seems surprising. And so or maybe it was just I wasn't focusing on that. I don't know. I was focusing on pediatrics. And so when I opened up my clinic after I graduated, an interesting thing happened. A patient diagnosed with pancreatic stage 4 cancer came to my clinic. And then a woman who had just read Suzanne Summers' book on taking bioidentical hormones while she has breast cancer came to my clinic. And these two patients kind of just totally changed the course of my practice, of my career, of my specialties. And so, one of my professors said, just wake up in the morning and tell the universe to send you what you can handle and how you can help and send you where you can be of service. And so I guess the universe had other ideas for me, although I do still do some pediatrics because who don't love kids? But so this woman who came with Suzanne Summers' book was like, I want what she's having and I want these hormones. And I was taken aback because I didn't realize Suzanne Summers was dabbling in alternative medicine. I just knew her growing up watching Three's Company. And I knew her as the actress who played the ditzy blonde. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. I love when people like to stay in their lanes. And so, but she was like really into it and I have a really open mind. And I was like, let me read the book and I'll tell you what I think. And so I read the book and I was like, oh, wow, actually, she is not so ditzy in real life. And this makes a lot of sense to me, what she's saying and who she's doing. And at the time, she was working with Dr. Jonathan Wright, who ended up becoming my mentor and who I studied with and learned hormones from. And he's the grandfather of bioidentical hormone replacement in the United States. He wrote the first script for Biased. Everyone who uses Biased does 80-20. And that's because of him. A lot of people, especially nowadays, they don't know who he is. They don't give him credit. And they don't know like the beginnings of where this all came from and what he saw and how he came up with 80-20, which is the ratio of estriol to estradiol in a Biased cream. So anyway, I started treating her with these hormones because I figured, like, this is all good, but I can make it even better because I'm a naturopathic physician and I have training in Europe, in European biological medicine. And I know the body is a whole terrain and these hormones need to be in a healthy, happy body. And so I was like, sure, I'll do this for you, as long as we also do your lymph system. And the microbiome wasn't even like really popular back then, but it was in my world because in Europe, we knew all about the microbiome and we're talking about it way before it was really being talked about here in the States. And so I treated her. Her husband sent me flowers. He was like super happy that he had his wife back and all the things. And so then thus begun the Dr. Stills husband fan club. And I looked at myself and thought, well, one, she like told people and they told people. And the next thing I knew, I had like a lot of menopausal women in my practice wanting hormones. And I was at the time in my early 30s, and menopause, like, that was not something I was thinking about, but I had like extreme hormone dysfunction. I had the worst premenstrual. Some women get PMS and, 2 days before their period, they get a headache or they get bloated or they get breast tenderness. And I'm not downplaying that because although that's common, it's certainly not normal. But I literally had PMS like 2.5 weeks every month. So I would get my period, I would bleed, I'd feel like garbage. I'd finish my period, I'd have like 5 days, maybe 6 days, maybe a week if I was lucky, where I felt like a normal human being. And then my PMS would kick in and I would spend the rest of the month suffering. So bloated. People would ask me like when my baby was due, cravings, breast tenderness, headaches, like you name it, like check, check, check. And so here I was like suffering and I'm like helping all these women who are decades older than me. And I'm like watching them, they're like aging backwards and they're all feeling amazing. And, they're having a good old time. And I'm thinking, I need to do something for myself because I can't in good conscience sit here with like horrible hormones and like not be practicing what I preach. So I just kind of tweaked what I was doing for them to a cycling woman. So I didn't need the exact same hormones, but I needed lymph support and liver support and gut support and blood sugar support and all the support. And I needed progesterone, DHEA, and so forth. And so I balanced my hormones and got rid of my horrific PMS, which was like, bye, that's nice to see you go. And so much so that when I went into menopause myself, I was 48 when I was done. So I was a little on the earlier side, but it's an average. So 48 is not like a medical issue. But I never even had a hot flash. I never had any symptoms of menopause because I had what I call pre-gamed and balanced my hormones, a couple of decades prior in my early 30s. And so I've always loved menopause, been like this beautiful time for me. And so when did I start? I started a very long time ago doing this. So I have, close to 25 years now experience because I really started doing this right out the gate.
All right, that's awesome. And yeah, I love what you said about it's not just like you've been taking the bioidentical hormones for a long time, but also supporting the liver, the lymphatics, the gut. So you look at the whole body and not just, not just recommending hormones to everybody without addressing like root causes.
Yeah, and I kind of termed it, I'm a hormone first kind of doctor. I'm hormone forward. So a lot of times I do in my practice get the hormones handled. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, clean the mold, get rid of the parasites, fix the gut. But I find if you don't have your hormones balanced, like you just suffer a lot longer and it's harder. Like our hormones are integrally involved in, I mean, I remember when I first learned about hormones, or even as a doctor before I really started diving into this, I'm like, oh, women have hormones. So, they can get a period and they can get pregnant, have a baby, and they can have hot flashes when they go through menopause. And I never really stopped to think like, wow, the hormones are helping to regulate the nervous system. They're helping to regulate the immune system. They're helping to regulate tight junctions in the gut. They're supporting bone health. They're supporting brain health. They're supporting the intima and the cardiovascular system and arterial health and how they are like involved in detox and everything. And so the way I work in my office is, women, men come in with laundry lists of things that they're complaining about. And if they're in this perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal range, I'm like, let's handle your hormones and then let's see what's left. because a lot of times the long laundry list is like, and as humans, we like, I don't know, I like to complain, right? We love to complain. It's in my heritage. And so, we complain, but then when we feel good, we forget. And so like patient will come in and I'll give them hormones according to what their testing showed. And I'll follow up with them in 4 weeks, because after 4 weeks, I find there's big change. And I'm like, how you doing? And they're like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm like, well, let's go through, is your joint pain still there? Oh gosh, no, I forgot. Like, I don't have any joint pain anymore, or my headaches are gone, or I'm sleeping well, or I have more energy. And so I find in this stage of life, hormones can really handle a lot. And I'd rather like balance the hormones than play whack-a-mole on 7 different things. Once we get the hormones balanced, then we could see what's still left, right? Because I do see joint pain reverse a lot because someone needed estrogen or testosterone or DHEA or cortisol or thyroid. But you could also have joint pain because you have bad body mechanics, or you're eating foods you shouldn't be eating, or you're deficient in a nutrient, or, there's lots of reasons. But so I'd rather just figure out like what are the hormones affecting, and then we can go look. And then, yes, I'm testing everyone for their microbiome. I'm doing extensive viral testing, extensive blood work, extensive gut testing. I'm looking at everything. But, in med school, I mean, they probably taught you this too, right? Like, you need to get your patients to feel better or they're not coming back, right? You get a few
True.
you get a few chances or a few weeks. As a society, we're not very patient people. We want quick action. And so hormones are very lovely. And I always say, like, there's the myth, there's no magic bullet to health. And I've said that for years. But as I started working more and more with hormones, I'm like, well, if there was a magic bullet, it could very well be the symphony of properly prescribed hormones, because they really can make a huge difference in someone's life, the way they feel, the way they age, the way they prevent or ward off chronic disease. And it doesn't take, like, another thing they taught us in medical school, if someone comes in with an autoimmune disease, let's just say, and they've been sick for 10 years, you kind of have that conversation the first appointment. You've been sick for 10 years, so I'm not going to get you better in a week. You need to give me some time to reverse. But with hormones, I have women who come to me that are in their 80s that have been misled and told hormones cause cancer. You can't have hormones. It's too late for you. You missed the boat. All this ridiculousness that floats around out there. They've been suffering for decades. And I finally give them hormones. And often it's overnight. We get a phone call the next day. And it's certainly within that 2, 3, 4 week period. I'm not saying that everything is perfect, but we have like moved the lever, moved the needle significantly to where they feel like they have their life back again.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I definitely want to focus more on some of these myths and misconceptions when it comes to hormones. I mean, one of them that you just mentioned, which I learned too, is that there's like a window when you hit menopause. I think like 5 years or 7 years, and after that, you're not going to benefit anymore from hormones. But you just mentioned, like, if an 80-year-old woman walks into your practice, you're not going to say, "Hey, you're 80, you're past the window. You can't. I can't help you with the hormones." You still find that uh, you find that that's not true, obviously, if you're recommending hormones still.
Yeah, I mean, I have women travel to me from literally all over the globe, and part of it is sad that they have to, but the fact is that I just had someone do a second opinion consult the other day who's going to fly in to see me. And she's like, got a laundry list of things bothering her, hasn't slept, all these typical hormone things. And she was told she can't take hormones because 20 years ago she had ovarian cancer. And so women are withheld hormones for that reason, because they're too old, which, is not true. And so they come to me because I'm like, that's not true. And so many doctors are just not taking the time to get properly educate. I just had a patient before you. I just had a patient who just went to see her pulmonologist, and the pulmonologist started screaming at her for being on hormones and saying, "What do you need hormones for? You're 68 years old," and ridiculing her. And like she was so upset. And it's like, well, your pulmonologist should really like at least check PubMed and look at the data and see what the data actually says, or stay in her own lane. But this happens everywhere, in gynecologists' offices, in primary cares, in oncologist office. People are misled about hormones. And when I say people, it's mainly women, and they suffer. And so it's never too late. So is it optimal to start supporting your hormone decline when it's happening? Yeah, definitely, right? Because you're losing bone, you're losing volume in your brain, you're losing immune function, all these things that I say over and over again. So if we can catch it right away, yeah, it's better. But if we have to wait 10 years for whatever reason, it's still going to help. We can still slow down the aging process. We can still start to reverse things that have happened. So it's never too late. And I do hot yoga, and Bikram says, it's never too late, right? It's never too late. You can be 90 years old and you can come to the hot yoga room and you can start to repair and regenerate your body. So it is never too late to, I have like red, and the R in red stands for reinvent your health. And it's like, it's never too late to reinvent your health. So obviously, I should know this by now because I quote it and I always like, but like, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or is it the opposite, or something
I know
like
what you're saying. Yeah.
that?
I
So,
forget the exact saying too, but I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
so obviously it's better to prevent or to treat earlier. Like, so I'm a really good example, right? Because I started balancing my hormones and paying attention in my early 30s. And so I never had a hot flash. And that's like most women have had hot flashes. A lot of women have had hot flashes, like ruin their life, ruin their sleep. So, and that's because I pre-gamed, I prevented. I'm very fortunate. This is what I do for a living. But it's never too late. Like, to anyone who's listening, if you're suffering, like, you do not need to suffer.
All right. Now going back to perimenopause, true or false? When you're in perimenopause, you're not supposed to take estrogen.
Well, true and false. It just depends on who you are, right? Like, there are no I mean, so as a naturopathic physician, I am very individualized, which often makes a lot more work for me, but better outcomes for my patients, because I don't have protocols, I don't have plans, we don't have, and we've been talking about this. We're opening up this huge clinic, and my son and I were like, okay, we should sit down and make like the detox plan. And like after 15 minutes, we like looked at each other and we're like, we can't do this. It's like different people need different things for different detox, and they have different constitutions. And so if I was treating 17 people who have scleroderma, they all have different treatment plans. Sure, there might be some overlap, and I might be using DMSO and MSM and whatever, but they're different because you have an autoimmune disease for a different reason than every other person, because there's emotional components, there's toxic components, there's nutritional components, there's all the different components. But when it comes to menopause, perimenopause, it's not a disease, it's a transition, it's a natural thing. And so when women are postmenopausal, yeah, it's more like, yeah, they all need estrogen. But there's always like little unicorns, which is why we test. I had a woman the other day. She was like, still making testosterone. She was in like her early 70s. I was like, go you. She eats a healthy diet, she exercises, but that's few and far between. So in perimenopause, your hormones are like, they're at Disneyland riding the roller coaster. So some women need estrogen and some women don't. My experience is that women either lose like their estrogen and their progesterone and they produce testosterone longer, or they lose their testosterone first and produce progesterone and estrogen. And that's just what I see from looking at hundreds and thousands of tests all day long.
Yeah,
So,
and I brought that up because someone on the podcast said that pretty much that perimenopausal woman shouldn't take estrogen because of those peaks and valleys. They might be in a valley, but then if they're on estrogen and then they reach that peak, that they might be in an estrogen dominant state.
So estrogen dominance is like so played out. Like you can be estrogen dominant because you don't have enough progesterone. And so I tell women all this time, like, I'm like, you need estrogen. And then I'm like, you're also estrogen dominant because it's a relative thing. You
Yep.
can be estrogen dominant in response to your progesterone. Or yes, you can be estrogen dominant because you're not clearing your estrogen or because you're getting xenoestrogens, which are exogenous from the outside. And we do get, there's a lot of toxicity and there's a lot of estrogen-like plastics and fertilizers and things of that nature. And you have to understand your body. So like I have some women in perimenopause, they take estrogen 1 week of the month because that's when they need it. Some women need it all month long. Some women need a little bit. Some women just need estriol. So you can never make a blanket statement like that because otherwise then you're not paying attention to your patients.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. It's great to get different perspectives. So.
I get like very heated about this.
No, that's okay. Well, let's see if we get heated. I got another true or false question. So, which I think I kind of know the answer because I've done my research. I've listened to you on other people's podcasts in preparation, but still, I like to hear, and other people haven't heard maybe what I'm about to ask. So, true or false? You need healthy adrenals in order to have healthy sex hormones.
If you are looking to do everything you can to save your thyroid, in addition to watching my videos on YouTube, you also might want to subscribe to my free online newsletter, which is called Healthy Gut, Healthy Thyroid. Not only will you get the latest news on how to heal your gut and restore your thyroid health, but during each edition, I'll demonstrate a different blood or functional medicine test marker that relates to healing your gut and or your thyroid. There will also be an Ask Dr. Eric section where not only can you see questions that other people have asked related to gut and thyroid health, but you can also submit a question for me to answer in a future edition. To subscribe to the Healthy Gut, Healthy Thyroid newsletter, please visit savemythyroid.com/newsletter.
All right. So everyone says you don't need to take hormones because when you go through menopause, your adrenals are going to take over. And so why take hormones? Because your adrenals are going to do the job. Now, your adrenals are probably not going to be healthy by the time you go through menopause because you are alive on the earth. And you tell me someone who doesn't have stress or someone who doesn't know how to deal with their stress. So yes, there's a few, urban monks out there, right, living among us. But for the most part, by the time we get to menopause or perimenopause, our adrenals are kind of like SOS, help me, help me. And there's a big misconception that everyone has high cortisol and high cortisol is ruining your life. But I test cortisol. I test it in the 24-hour wet urine. I test it in saliva, and I test it all the time. And in this age range, most women and men have low cortisol. They don't have a rhythm. They don't have a cortisol awakening response. They're high at night when they should be low. They're in the basement all day long, and then maybe they get their second wind. So do you need to have healthy adrenals? Yeah, I'm always paying attention to the adrenals because the adrenals are important for inflammation, for sleep-wake cycle, for blood sugar regulation, for mood regulation, for gut regulation. So they play a role, but to me, they're important, they're hormones, but they're like side by side. So there are, again, I call them unicorns. There are some women whose adrenals are like surprisingly okay. You still haven't got to go look at their mitochondria and their neurotransmitters and other things. But what I see most often, like in the 90 percentile of everyone I look at, is that their adrenals need support. They might need to be toned down at night, but the morning, the noon levels are super low. And so it's kind of like when you're postmenopausal, the adrenals, even if they're perfect, they're not going to put out what the ovaries were putting out. So even if you have good functioning adrenals, maybe you're going to get to like a postmenopausal state of hormone production, and that is not going to give you symptom relief, and that is not going to give you the protection and prevention. And to me, both of them are equally important. Like, obviously, I don't want anyone suffering, and you shouldn't have to deal with symptoms. But the other part of protection and prevention against cancer and dementia and Alzheimer's and autoimmunity and osteoporosis and all the cardiovascular disease, the biggest killer of women, like hormones are like the biggest thing you can do to hedge your bet to ward off chronic illness. And so adrenals, it's not like fix your adrenals and forget about your hormones. Like, to me, we're doing both. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And I guess you could look at it this perspective too. Like if a woman is, let's say they're in postmenopause and so they have really low estrogen levels and they're experiencing those hot flashes and night sweats, I mean, that itself is very stressful. So it would be very difficult to say to that woman, well, just focus on managing stress and optimizing your adrenals when those symptoms are causing a lot of stress by themselves.
Exactly. And fixing the adrenals is, when we have hot flashes, like that's our brain saying there's low estrogen. And so I always, there are women who say, like, I just have a real good mindset. So I don't care about my hot flashes. I just say they're power surges and I'm a wise woman now. And I'm like, you could be a wise woman, but you don't have to have hot flashes. That is a sign. Symptoms are signs from your body like, hello, there's something going on here. I need you to pay attention. That's why we have symptoms. It's our body's way of talking to us. And so there are a lot of things you can eat your way out of, you can move your body out of, you can sleep your way out of, you can meditate your way out to improve your health. But when it comes to your hormone tank being empty, you can't do it. It's like you have to fill the tank with hormones. All those other things, they might nudge you a little. And I see this, like, I have a lot of clinical experience. I've been doing this I'm going on to 25 years. I've been doing it a really long time. And so I see women who, because there's that other myth, like, I'm going to have a natural menopause, so I'm not going to take hormones, but I'm going to take vitamin E and I'm going to take flaxseed and I'm going to take maca and I'm going to take black cohosh. And so, like, somehow we've decided, like, herbs are okay, but bioidentical hormones are not, even though that's the root cause and that's what we're missing. We're not deficient in maca. We're deficient in estrogen or progesterone or DHEA or pregnenolone or whatever it is. But I see a lot of these women and, maybe they're feeling a little better, but, then they come see me and then we put them on hormones. And like, I hear the same thing all the time. I like wasted 5 years of my life. I feel so good now. I was suffering. I don't know why I did that. Like, so sometimes we get in our own way. Like, we get on our little soapboxes and, I'm like supernatural. Like, I practice what I preach. I really walk my walk. I have to. I was very sick as a kid. And if I don't live what I preach, I wouldn't be doing the things I'd be doing. I'd be laying on the couch. And so, the root cause, we talk a lot about root cause medicine, but the root cause of menopause is hormones, I always kid around, the ovaries are like, that looks nice. We're going to hang a little hammock and we're going to go to the beach and we're retiring and see ya, we're done. And so that is the root cause, that the ovaries are not putting out your hormones anymore. So we didn't used to live like more than half our lives postmenopausal. So it wasn't as big a deal for our ancestors, but we can live. I mean, I plan to live to 130. Like, we are biochemically designed to live to 120, I think. Maybe it's upped a little. I added on 10 years when I started doing Prolon and started like fasting and inducing autophagy. I'm like, I'm getting another 10 years for this. So, but like, why would you want to live more than half your life? And if you look like, and no one's really done it, but like, if you look at women who are on hormones and they're in their 80s, and you look at women who aren't, it's like drastic. Like, women who aren't on hormones are old, and women who are on hormones are like going motorcycle riding or going sailing, or, they're like living life. They're sharp, they're strong, they're having sex, they're sleeping, they're excited, they're passionate. So we really need to change the whole conversation, the whole psyche of society of what it means to age.
Yeah, a lot of what you said makes sense. And I think some of it also is fear. I mean, some of it is certainly like I want to do everything natural and, don't want to take hormones. But then there's also, another myth that like taking progesterone is safe, but taking estrogen increases the risk of cancer.
Like,
So,
we know that's not true. Like,
yeah, especially the bioidentical estrogen, and if you're dosing properly, and but again, you're the expert, so why don't you, yeah, so let's talk about that, because that is a fear of a lot of people. No, I don't want to take estrogen because it can
well,
cause cancer.
even if you look at the Women's Health Initiative from the early 2000s, which is the study that like freaked everyone out and had hormones ripped away from these generations of women who were on hormones because they said it increased your risk of cancer. Well, it was a really poor design study. It was even worse interpreted, poorly interpreted, and it's now been debunked. And even from that study, the women in the estrogen only arm had less breast cancer. And they were taking synthetic estrogen, which I would never recommend.
Yep.
So even the women who were taking Premarin, pregnant horse urine, which has DNA damaging estrogen in it that don't belong in a human body, they even had a reduced reduction in cancer. So where this came from, it was the women who were taking estrogen and progestins, which is the synthetic type of progesterone. So I never recommend, even with that, I'm like, well, no, you still shouldn't take horse estrogen. Still not a good idea to put that in your body. But when we're talking about bioidentical, we're talking about naturally compounded, identical to what your body produces. So when it gets to the cellular receptor site, the cell's like, oh, I recognize this. I know what this is. This is estrogen. And to say that estrogen causes cancer is such lazy medicine, because there are different kinds of estrogens. So estrone, which is E1, is inflammatory because it hits the alpha receptors and it does cause growth. So yes, estrone, uncontrolled, unbalanced, imbalanced by, not protected with progesterone, without DHEA, without testosterone, without proper thyroid hormone and cortisol and so forth. Yes, that can be a factor, because cancer is never like a one cause thing. It's multifactorial why we grow a tumor in our terrain. So, but estriol, which is E3, hits the beta receptors. It's very anti-inflammatory. I use it to treat active cancer. 2-methoxyestradiol, which is an estrogen metabolite from estradiol, very anti-cancer, anti-angiogenic. They would love to make a pharmaceutical out of it if they can figure it out, so they can make lots of money, because that's what the pharmacy companies do. So there's different kinds of estrogens. And if you understand estrogen as like an umbrella, and that they're, just like if a husband and a wife have 8 kids, like they're not all the same. They all have different personalities. So it's the same with estrogen. So yes, some are more inflammatory, like 4-hydroxyestrone is a metabolite that's known to cause DNA damage. But there are some and testosterone is anti-cancer, DHEA is anti-cancer, progesterone. So it's the symphony. And what I find is women who end up with cancer from a hormonal perspective, it's because they're not on hormones and their hormones aren't balanced, or their hormones are depleted. So my experience is totally the opposite.
And then when it comes to testing also, so a lot of practitioners these days do dry urine testing, but you like wet urine testing. So let's talk about how you test the hormones.
So I test with a 24-hour wet urine, which is a collection of all your urine over 24 hours. So the reason why dried urine testing was created was because they decided it would be easier to market, because they didn't think women could do hard things like pee in a bucket for 24 hours. And so they came up with this, well, let's have them dry it. Let's not have them collect. Let's just do 4 samples. But you need to get the whole 24-hour gestalt of what's going on, because there's ebbs and flows. There's a circadian rhythm happening. And so it's a lot of mistakes are made when collecting dry urine, and it doesn't give you the whole story. And so when we compare them side by side, we see that the test results are very inaccurate. So like I won't even, women bring them to me and I won't prescribe off of them. I won't really give them the time of day because I want accurate information. And so dried urine has good PR. I'm like, they really, made their mark, but a lot of doctors who really understand hormones, we're in the clinic all day. We're not out there on Instagram influencing. We're seeing patients, we're in the clinic, we're in the trenches, and we don't have time to like fight against, what the ethos is saying in society. And so it's kind of sad that this happened, but I've been doing 24-hour wet urine testing since I was in medical school in the 90s. Dried urine testing wasn't even a thing then. And so it really is the gold standard. And you can really see, so like a lot of people who do blood only never look at the metabolites, never see the breakdown. And you can't see estriol, which is E3, has a very short half-life. So you can't really see it in the blood. It's not very easily measured in serum. But when you do 24 hours, so the word on the street is like estriol doesn't matter. Now there's like crazy word on the street that estriol is dangerous and you don't need it, which is totally absurd. But that estradiol, like everyone talks about estradiol. Estradiol is the strongest. Estradiol is the only one that matters. Estradiol, estradiol, estradiol. When you do 24-hour urine testing, you see that estriol in healthy women, postmenopausal, premenopausal, perimenopausal, a lot of them will produce more estriol than estradiol. And that's really the ratio we want it to be in. So again, it's like if you can only see what you're looking at. And so if you don't know where to look, you don't really always get to see the truth. So
and is that testosterone too, 24-hour urine or?
Yeah, so I check all the estrogens, all the metabolites, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA. I test glucocorticoids. So you have like your cortisol and your cortisone storage form and metabolites. And that's helpful, but it doesn't show you the circadian rhythm. So I always make patients do a 24-hour saliva test, because I can see in a 24-hour wet urine, like, oh yeah, you're really not producing a lot or you're overproducing, but it doesn't tell me when. And when it comes to adrenal health, the when is really important, because we want to have that nice ski slope. We want to have that nice circadian rhythm. In the 24-hour wet urine, we're also looking at free thyroid hormones. We look at melatonin. We look at oxytocin. We look at growth hormone. We look at nitric oxide levels. So we look at a full symphony. Doesn't mean that I don't go to the blood to check SHBG and DHT and a gazillion other levels to just look at overall health. Parathyroid hormone, vitamin D. There are certain things that, yes, you need to go to the blood for, but I get
regular thyroid too. Do you look at regular thyroid in the blood as well? Like TSH, free T3, free T4?
Oh yeah, reverse. Yeah, so the 24-hour wet urine just shows free T3 and free T4, but it doesn't show the antibodies. It doesn't show TSH, and it doesn't show reverse T3. So because reverse T3 really helps guide what I'm going to prescribe, if they're going to be T3 only or they're going to be a T4, T3 compound. So when I do a wet urine, I can say like, oh, your T3 is looking low. I can look at their symptoms. I can go, yeah, you're definitely going to need thyroid, but let's get some stuff in your blood and see, like, is your reverse T3 too high? Do we not want to give you T4 because you're just going to convert it to reverse T3 anyway? And or do you have elevated antibodies? Because if your antibodies are elevated, well, now we have to figure out, like, yes, we probably still need to support your thyroid if it's been damaged, but now we need to figure out why your immune system is attacking your thyroid.
Right. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you about castor oil packs, just because it's such a hot topic, and I listened to another episode that you were on, another podcast interview where you raved about castor oil packs.
I love castor oil packs. I've been prescribing those for 25 years too. Yeah, so we do computerized regulation thermography, which is a machine from Germany to look at your regulation of all your organs and your teeth. And it's one of the only tools available that can diagnose if your lymph system is congested, which, newsflash, most people are. But castor oil is just like cheap. It's easy to do. It's empowering because you could do it yourself. It's nurturing. It makes you sit down and take care of yourself, which a lot of women have a hard time doing or don't think they have time for. And it helps drain. It helps detox. You can do them over your liver. You can do them over your thyroid. You can do them over your breasts. You can do them. I have people, I'm like, mummy up. We're going to do you from, here to your pubic bone, just depending upon what I see in the thermography. And I'm like really old school. I know there's different ways to do castor oil, but castor oil packs were from Edgar Cayce, who was in the early 1900s. He was a medical medium. He was a doctor, but he like channeled different treatments. And castor oil packs was one of the things that he channeled. And he has like the ARE clinic in Virginia Beach, and he has he's no longer with us, but there's a lot. Heritage House is like his company that sells his remedies. So his work is still around, and the most popular is castor oil. And so I'm real old school. Like, I'm like, if he's the one who brought it to us, we should probably do it the way he says to do it. And so I like make patients like heat the castor oil, get a pack, put like a hot water bottle or a low EMF dry heating pad, lay with it for 45 minutes, let it drive it in, rather than just like rub some castor oil on and, call it a day. And the reason why I do that is it's just what I see in my thermography scan. I see patients who take the time to do that. We see flow and clearing and less toxins than if you're just rubbing some on.
It's great. So you actually could compare the before and after with the thermography and see those changes.
Yeah, because I'll have women be like, I've been doing it for 2 years. And I'm like, you are you're like lit up like a Christmas tree. So it's not working. And then we'll do it old school and then we'll check and we'll see, okay, see now things are moving.
All right, that's pretty cool. So I'm glad I asked about them, and yeah, thank you. This was great. This was a lot of information packed in a short period of time. So just again, appreciate you sharing your thoughts on hormones and testing for hormones, and of course finishing up with the castor oil packs. And so it's Dr. Sharon, where can people find out more about you?
Well, let's see. Well, we have our new clinic, Lasting Wellness Center in Scottsdale, which we will have lastingwellnesscenter.com. We just we're in the middle of building it out. But drstills.com has been my website for 25 years and will remain. So that's always a good place. We're really active. Like if you sign up for my newsletter, like that's the one place. I keep swearing I'm going to become consistent on Instagram. And I don't know, I go in and out because I get busy and I like to be present in my life and I don't want to always be holding a camera. But we do communicate to my community through my email list. We have a very big community and we are very good about communicating through email. So that's a good place if you want to know what's going on. But very soon I will be at Lasting Wellness Center. We have a huge clinic. It's 7,000 square feet. We have all my diagnostics and therapeutics that I have collected from Europe over the years. And opening a clinic is like giving birth to like a dozen babies. So I will be there. I will be busy getting that all, but I really wanted to have a place where people could come and heal. People are very sick. And unfortunately, they're getting sicker. And I wanted them to have a place and come to get EBU and hypoxia training and oxygen and hydrogen and all the tools that, sometimes when we're really sick, we need to like be somewhere and be held and be handled. and be nurtured and have therapeutics done so that our body can heal. So that's where I'll be.
All right. That sounds amazing. One day I'll need to visit when it's open, take a
Yes,
tour.
please come to our grand
Yeah.
opening.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks, Dr. Sharon. Of course, I'll share the information in the show notes, and yeah, again, once again, appreciate you taking the time to chat about hormones and
Uh,
castor oil packs.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.